Over the last couple of days, we've watched the collapse of FTX in near real time. My God, I can't wait for this movie to come out. Now, over the next couple of days and weeks, it's important to understand a couple of key phrases, and those are assets, liabilities, and contagion. No, not that kind, this kind. Now, you're going to hear these terms thrown around over and over again, so here's a crash course in their meaning. Now, first, let's talk about assets and liabilities. And simply put, assets is the value of all of your money and valuable stuff. And liabilities is your debt, the value of everything you owe. And a balance sheet is a comprehensive list of all of your assets versus all of your liabilities. For most people, it works a little something like this. Say your buddy owes you $20. Well, that $20 IOU from your buddy, that's your asset, but it's also his liability. So it's important to understand that in many cases, one person's asset is somebody else's liability and vice versa. Now, bonds and loans work the same way. Say you buy a U.S. government treasury bond. Well, now you've made a loan to the U.S. government. That bond is your asset, but it's also the government's liability. Now, debt-based assets only have value as long as the counterparty, your buddy or the U.S. government, can actually pay you back. If someone who owes you money goes broke and they can't pay you back, well, now that asset becomes worthless. That's known as counterparty risk. So now that we know that FTX is bankrupt because it turns out their assets were essentially worthless, now we all need to be worried about the counterparty risk to FTX's liabilities. $10 to $50 billion of liabilities according to their bankruptcy filing. Remember, all of those billions of dollars that FTX owes, all of their liabilities, are actually assets on somebody else's balance sheet. Take the Ontario Teachers' Pension System, for example. They had $95 million invested in FTX. So on the Ontario Teachers' Pension System balance sheet, right now there's a $95 million asset that has just been made worthless by FTX. That ESG score, though. And at this point, there's no telling who else is potentially exposed to this, besides freaking everybody. In their bankruptcy filing, Alameda Research alone checked the box for more than 100,000 different creditors. That means that these kids owed money to at least 100,000 different people or companies, and that number doesn't even begin to include the more than 1 million FTX customers. And this brings me to the final important phrase you need to understand: contagion. Now, they make it sound like a disease for good reason. The disease in this case is bad debt. And much like a pathogen, every single person or company that has touched FTX or Alameda's balance sheet has been exposed to this pathogen and thus poses a counterparty risk. For example, if you had 100% of your money in FTX, well, now all of your assets are worthless, but you still have liabilities. You still have a mortgage, a car loan, credit cards, all bills that you can't pay. But remember, your liabilities are somebody else's asset. So the people that you owe money to, their assets are becoming worthless. Now they're losing money too. The contagion has spread. Remember that Ontario Teachers' Pension Fund? Well, there's been no change to their liabilities, the teachers who are depending on that money in retirement, and so the contagion has spread from FTX to the Ontario Teachers' Pension Fund to the Ontario teachers or the taxpayers in Ontario who are going to have to make up that shortfall. Now, Sam Bankman-Fried, through FTX and Alameda, he was the one who stopped the crypto collapse contagion back in the spring. He used all of his probably stolen money to buy up all of the failing crypto companies in order to stop the dominoes from falling, and thus he halted the spread of contagion. Well, now those dominoes are falling again. In just the last few days, BlockFi has halted withdrawals. Crypto exchange AAX halted withdrawals, citing a system upgrade. Yeah, okay. Whatever the heck is going on between Crypto.com and Gate.io stinks worse than that time your buddy left you an upper decker right before you went home for Christmas break. We all have that one friend. And the contagion doesn't stop spreading until all the pain of that tens of billions of dollars of bad debt is spread out across enough people and companies that it can be absorbed without all of them going bankrupt. And this is exactly why the government had to step in after the Lehman Brothers collapse and bail out the banks. Lehman had $613 billion worth of liabilities, and the contagion from a collapse that big was threatening to bring down the whole financial system. And for all we know, by the time the smoke clears from the crypto collapse of 2022, the losses could be that big. Till next time, live small and dream big.